Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around it is a review of the 1988 teen comedy License to Drive. Now, this is a film that I've seen a couple times now, and I know it has a pretty big following. I know some of my friends and subscribers love this movie. This has actually been requested numerous times by people, and it's one of those films that I get why people love it, but I just like it. I don't love this film. I like it for its verve, its vitality. I like it for its aesthetics, its 80s look, feel, and vibe. I like it for Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. Um, but I don't really love the movie because I feel that the screenplay is not really the strongest. When it comes to the humor, I don't think it's really as humorous as it could have been. Also, there are a few missed opportunities with the screenplay, like for instance, more of the fantasy sequences. That whole fantasy sequence in the beginning that looked like something straight out of Nightmare on Elm Street with kids chained to their bus seats, and it's all dreary and dark looking. And then Les shows up in his Ferrari, and he's got the girl, and throws a match in the back and explodes. There's an explosion in the background. That's a really great fantasy sequence, and it's a really fun way to start the movie and a really unique way to start the film. And I feel that there weren't nearly enough sequences like that. I would have loved to have seen more dream sequences because those are really a lot of fun and they were really unique and made the film stand out in a genuinely good way. Now, the film is directed by Greg Beeman, and I don't think his direction is terrible, but I can't really lie and say it's anything special either. The direction for this film is it's adequate. It's decent. I honestly think the cinematography and the editing were ultimately more impressive than the direction or the second unit stuff by the stunt guys who were more than likely the ones that were responsible for directing the sequences with the cars and the chases and so on and so forth. Like the sequence where Les and Dean and Charles are chasing after this drunk guy who stole Les's grandfather's car, and or the climactic. It's not really a chase, but it's a race. It's a race to the hospital backwards. That was probably more due to the editor or the cinematographer. The editing, but still, direction's still good. It's not spectacular, but it's serviceable enough. It's not really a problem. It doesn't cause the film to burn out by any means or get into some sort of crash. So it did. Greg had a job to do, and he did it. Uh, the script by Neil Tolkien. I like the concept. I like the idea of this night of craziness where Les is driving without a license because he wants to get the girl of his dreams, and then things really start to take a turn in a different way than you might expect. Like for instance, the girl of his dreams is pretty much passed out drunk for most of the night, and that created a very different dynamic. Yeah, it created a really effective um, change from the norm when it comes to this kind of character or this kind of plot. Most of the time, like, oh, she's going to be plain sober the entire time, or maybe she'll have a drink or two, but she'll still be awake enough to interact with the character, with the main character. But in this film, she's just flat out drunk, passed out in the trunk for most of the night, and then when she wakes up, she's just so far gone that she might as well be on the moon. Uh, that was a nice change of pace from the usual characterization or plot structure when it comes to that kind of dynamic between two characters. Now, that being said, there are other things that don't really work. Like, I don't think the whole subplot with Les's sister works at all, played by Nina Simasco, Natalie, because it seems like they're trying to do some satire of socialism, but it's surface level, so it comes across as forced. And then on top of that, it just feels like it's very rushed and incomplete with the subplot. It feels like it's padding for the running time. It feels like, oh, we need to cut away from the action with Les and his friends on this night in the town for what's going on with his sister, and also to connect things together for that sequence where they're on TV and they go through the riot. But for instance, her car that she borrowed, which actually isn't her car, it's I think it's her parents' car, borrowed her parents' car, and it's absolutely totaled by the end of the movie too. And the last time you saw it, it just got towed away by a tow truck, and then it shows up totaled later. Like, how did that happen? What was going on with that? Like, how, it would have been nice to have seen even more craziness with the sister and what was going on. But how did her car get totaled? Never saw that. And then also, her character, I don't think she was given a fair shake either. So I don't think this character was an afterthought, clearly. I mean, there's a sequence where Les's best friend, Dean, insults her over the intercom, and it just comes across as mean-spirited. And it's just like, is that really all that this character is here for? To get insulted and called ugly and burped at because she's a girl, and she's a nerdy girl, and oh, what an ugly girl, and like, and her values are ugly too. Like, what why? And then even when they're trying to portray her in a different light, she comes across as being a bitch. So there's really never a moment where this character feels like anything other than kind of an antagonist, but then they don't really go all the way with that. So it just feels like padding, and the character feels like it's completely unnecessary. You didn't even need to have her in the movie or her subplot. And then there's these two guys who honestly, they're adults. I guess they're supposed to be teenagers at the high school who are, gearheads and are bullies, but come on. These are clearly guys in their 20s or 30s, and they look like they stepped off the set of The Road Warrior. So why the hell are these guys? But okay. That being said, all right, you're establishing that these guys are kind of a foil for Les and friends. And they set that up, and then they do nothing with it. So what's the point? So there's a lot of moments like this in the script where you're like, what was the point of that? Why did you have that in there if you weren't going to do anything with it? Or you're just going to have it there and then not really, take that particular plot line or subplot and kick it into high gear. What's the point? But then there's other things that are really clever, like the stuff with the DMV. I mean, don't fuck with the DMV. A lot of people honestly can relate to that. So there are moments where it genuinely is clever when it comes to this script and this screenplay. But then there's other moments where it kind of just spins its wheels. And that's ultimately a little disappointing. I like the zaniness. I like how things escalate even further as the film goes on. Particularly things culminating in a backwards race to the hospital. But I don't like how the character of Les does not have a real arc. So the character, it seems like it's set up where he needs to learn some humility. He needs to learn some lessons along the way, along his drive. He needs to learn that you're not always going to get what you want, and that sometimes to get what you want, you need to work for it. But that never happens in this movie. So it just makes the character come across as this guy who just pulls rabbits out of his ass all the time and still somehow manages to, wind up on his feet and get what he wants. And that's problematic, not only for the story or the character, but also for the audience that this film is intended for. This is intended for teenagers and for kids back in the 80s. It's the worst possible message to give these kids of, oh, hey, you can just fall ass backwards into whatever you want, and you'll get the girl of your dreams and all of that, and you don't even have to really work for it. You don't even really have to do that much. Oh, you can have a crazy night of driving and dealing with a drunk driver and almost dying on the freeway, but that's really the only tribulation that you are going to go with. And all it'll just be is a wild night of partying and craziness with your friends. And you still don't learn anything because you're still you still get the girl and you still get the drive even though you don't have a fucking license. So it's one of those movies where the character is a rebel and he's reckless, and that's fine, but there's never a moment where he's anything other than that. And I think that was a missed opportunity for characterization and also for an arc for the character. I mean, it's called License to Drive, and Les's character, played by Corey Haim, he never actually gets a license to drive. The one that he got in the film was fake because it didn't count. No, he never actually manages to get a real license to drive. What? I mean, it's a movie all about Les trying to get his driver's license, and it's all about, oh, he needs a license and he needs a car because it sucks not having a car in high school, and so on and so forth. And then by the end of the film, he gets the girl and he still doesn't have a license, and you're like, what? So that's another moment where the screenplay just spins its wheels, because you're like, why did he not get a real license by the end of the film? He could have just had a montage where he's studying for his driver's test, for his driver exam, and then he gets it. He finally understands things because he takes the time to slow down and focus, and he passes the test with flying colors. Then he takes the driving test again with, I believe it was, with James Avery's character, and he doesn't even spill the cup or anything. The cup doesn't even fall over. He aces it, and then he gets his license, and then you have that ending where he gets in the car with Mercedes and drives off. Like, would that really have hurt the film that much? I don't think so. Also would have been more cathartic, because then he would have had that moment where he could, finally tell the DMV bitch to stick it. I got my license now for real. What are you going to do about it? But no, doesn't happen. So that's one of the moments of the script that I thought was like, huh? It's called License to Drive and he doesn't even actually get a license. That being said, it is one of those movies that really does ride with its cast, and it's a very comfortable ride as a result, with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman as the two leads. Honestly, would have liked to have seen the two Coreys even more together, but they're a lot of fun. They have such great chemistry with one another because they really are, and they really were, genuine best friends. So that's something that you can't really recreate. It's something that honestly exists or it doesn't. Carol Kane's in this as Les's mom. Richard Masur plays his dad. I really loved Richard Masur in this. He did, especially when he was angry and he was really sore. Like, he had this manic energy about him that was really a lot of fun. Carol Kane, speaking of manic energy, she's one of the best when it comes to that kind of stuff, playing kooky, manic sort of characters. So she was right at home here. Heather Graham as Mercedes, definitely see why she was cast. She had a certain look to her. She definitely brightened up the screen anytime that she was on it. It's hard to look at, a young Heather Graham because I'm so used to her as a older actress. So I don't really have a whole lot of experience with her as a younger actress other than this film. So it was kind of hard because there were moments where I was kind of like, huh? Oh, that's Heather Graham. Okay. All right. Um, but yeah, she had a nice sense of chemistry with the cast as well, and I really loved how she handled the whole drunk stuff and how aloof she was and so on and so forth. She had fun with it, and as a result, it made it so it was less awkward. It could have been really awkward and really uncomfortable, but Heather had fun with it, so it wasn't that bad. In particular, there are moments where she really shows herself in an unflattering light, like where she's passed out with her like lips stuck on the windshield, and that was fun to see. And an actress like that be able to, you know, let it go, uh, and really not be afraid to play the fool. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the cast because it's really a film that focuses more on uh, a handful of cast members. Want to mention Michael Manaseri as Charles, the nerdy best friend of Les and Dean. I liked him. I thought he had a good back and forth with the two leads as well. Now, trying to think of any other things to mention about the movie. It does have a score by Jay Ferguson, and the score is fine. Has its moments of techno terrificness, but it's not one of those scores that you're going to sit and listen to all the time. The soundtrack is there. That's another thing that I think could have been better, is like a better, more memorable soundtrack in terms of the songs that were used on it. At least for me personally. Cinematography by Bruce Surtees, I thought was quite spectacular for this kind of movie. Had some nice, stunning visuals at times. I particularly like the shots of the drive-in cafe and Archie's Atomic and the dream sequence in the beginning and the chaotic, crazy testing sequence. I really like the way that was shot during the driver's exam. And speaking of the driver's exam, big reason why that sequence is so good is because of the editing by Wendy Green, Brickmont, and Stephen Samel. I thought they did a really good job editing the film and had just so much energy and vitality that was injected into the film due to the editing. And also, it helped that Corey Haim was the lead. Like, Corey Haim is a really, at least in his prime, he had a certain, uh, you know, drive and spirit to him and, pep in his step that was something that really did come across on screen. And so you could see why he was cast as the lead in this film. And you could see why he would get cast in other films. It's just a shame that over the years, as he got older, he just fell into depression and fell into the trap of drug addiction and so on and so forth. And ultimately, it cost him his life. And it's something that it's sad to see, but there still is that spark, and there will always still be that spark in films like this, with Corey, and it's one of those things where he was one of those actors that not only did he have the looks, but he had the charisma, and that goes a long way. when it comes to not only the effectiveness of overall legacy of an actor or a film, but also goes a long way in terms of the film's entertainment factor. Because you have a character that who is played by an actor that you like. There's just something about him that you genuinely like, so you want to see him figure it out. But at the same time, he doesn't really figure it out all the way, so that's a little disappointing because you're like, man, I wanted to see Corey learn a few more lessons and, you know, not really get out of this so easy. That being said, I don't really know what else to say about the film. It's got a simple premise, but it's done fairly well. It really doesn't have a dull moment. It's not a film that is gonna like bore you or anything. It's just there were some characterization moments and some parts where it spun its wheels a little bit too much for me. And it also, as a whole, wasn't as funny in terms of the comedy for me personally. But that being said, there were some moments that made me smile, that made me chuckle, went by at a fast enough pace. The two Coreys were really a lot of fun. And overall, yeah, it's a fun movie. I'd recommend it if you like 80s comedies for sure, especially if you like Corey Haim or Corey Feldman. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about the movie except thank you for watching my review. And as always, I'll see you later. See ya.